This was the legendary naval battle where 60,000 Mongol sailors were erased in a single stroke. The victory was a perfect symphony of psychological warfare, flawless timing, the clever use of terrain, and the seamless coordination of diverse forces. It was the triumph of a small kingdom whose royal house had once risen from fishing villages, now shattering the strongest army the world had ever known. Yet this epic was later buried, its glory dimmed in the records, for it was a humiliation too great for the giant empire to preserve in full. Stay with us for the next 30 minutes, and you will uncover the full story of this forgotten legend. How a nation of fishermen brought the might of the Mongols to ruin. The mightiest empire on earth set its eyes on Dai Viet. In 1258, the Mongols first struck, seeking to use Dai Viet as a springboard against the Southern Song. Yet under the decisive command of King Tran Tai Tong, the invaders walked into a trap, entering an abandoned Thang Long, where not a single supply could be seized. It was here that Tran Hung Dao, still young, first gained experience against an enemy of world-shaking power. The strategy of scorched earth denied the Mongols their greatest strength, feeding on the land of others. Fields were burned, villages emptied, and every supply route was ambushed. With nothing left to plunder, the Mongol army was forced to retreat in frustration, suffering heavy losses along the way. Dai Viet then rebuilt, scarred but unbroken, and from this crucible was born the warrior spirit of the Tran dynasty, where every commoner could rise as a defender of the realm. 27 years later, after the fall of the Southern Song, the Mongols returned with a perfected host, an army unmatched in Asia. Within Dai Viet, the struggle between those who sought peace and those who demanded war was ended by the Great Assembly of Dien Hong, an extraordinary act of unity where elders from across the land shouted with one voice to fight. The war that followed was brutal beyond measure. The royal court and the people evacuated Thang Long, leaving 600 warriors of the Holy Wing to hold the line for 7 days until every last defender fell, their commander rejecting the offer of life in exchange for surrender. A princess was sent to Prince Togan, both as a bargaining chip and perhaps as a spy inside the Mongol camp. Villages fought to the death, some erased from the earth, while warriors carved the words "Sat that, kill the Mongols" into their flesh, vowing never to surrender alive. The scorched earth campaign continued, stretching the enemy thin. Mongol armies chased the two Tran kings from river to land, coming within moments of capture. Yet always falling just short. At last, the kings reached the sea and escaped. And from that moment, the tide turned. Dai Viet gathered its strength, struck ambush after ambush, and launched decisive battles on both land and water. One by one, Mongol positions were torn apart until Thang Long itself was liberated, and the kings returned in triumph. At the heart of this victory was a simple yet brilliant design, splitting the vast Mongol host, isolating each garrison, and destroying them piece by piece before delivering the final blows. Prince Togon returned to Dadu in shame, and the great Admiral Omar carried home nothing but burning rage. In 1287, just as Tran Hung Dao had foreseen, the Mongols prepared to strike Dai Viet once more. But this time, the Tran dynasty was ready. For 30 years, the nation had endured, rebuilt, and sharpened its warriors into living blades.
It has been a long time since we planted spies in the north. By now, the seeds must have borne fruit. What news from the Yuan?
My lord, they prepare even more thoroughly than we expected.
This time, much of their host will be former Song soldiers, endless ranks of infantry, trained from slaves. They are so numerous, yet disposable. We can also expect troops from Yunnan Dali.
That is only the beginning. Added to them are the elite Yurshan horsemen, a people whose cavalry skill rivals the Mongols themselves, and not only them, but Tangut riders as well.
Last time, we struggled bitterly against their Keshik cavalry, paired with heavy infantry in the open field, a devastating combination.
And now, their navy will bring Goryeo sailors into the fight. Horse archers, undefeated on any battlefield. I will keep our channels open with the spies in the north.
This time, they gather the finest warriors of Asia, so many types of soldiers, each with strengths and weaknesses we do not fully know, but it does not matter. For 30 years we have prepared for this very hour, training a generation of warriors. In Dai Viet, every man is both farmer and fighter, and the art of war is the most sacred skill. Our army values quality over numbers. Each soldier is a hero. In peace, they may quarrel and argue. In war, I know they will die to shield one another, to shield Dai Viet. That is our pride. 30 years have forged a generation of men who will fight to the death, never surrender. And the longer they fight, the stronger they become.
This is our chance. Do you seek revenge?
Of course I do. The question is how to avoid the mistakes of last time.
Logistics? They will try everything to stretch and bleed our supply lines.
I know that well. That is why this time I have devised the perfect plan.
And what plan is that?
The power of the Navy. If we concentrate all supplies and move them by sea,
Then I can fully protect the convoys. They cannot defeat us in a direct confrontation on the water.
well said.
For this campaign, I have already
Now
built...
they shall be given to Dai Viet.
Now, I must reassure the Emperor.
This year, what do you think of the coming war?
This year, the war will be fought with ease.
Then let us spare the lives of our people as much as we can.
This time, bring plenty of physicians.
Tran Ichtak knows Dai Viet well.
He said, beware of Tran Hung Dao. He will surely build up the navy to counter you.
If that is all, I do not fear it. The navy of Dai Viet is decent, but nothing compared to ours.
But last time, we lost. They truly showed strength in open battle.
It does not matter. Our 700 new warships are unmatched, invincible in the world. Each one can crush the largest ships of the Southern Song with ease.
Such massive vessels. Will they still be agile?
For their size, they glide across the waters like storms.
Then let us bring the storm of vengeance and sweep Dai Viet from the earth.
In the final months of 1287, Omar's fleet clashed with the forces of Tran off the waters of Van Don, the first naval battle of this campaign. Omar's armada carried a critical mission to break open the sea route and escort the massive supply fleet of Zhang Wenyu.
Defeat was not an option. On the day I received my orders, Tran Hung Dao himself reminded me of its weight. His command was clear.
Do not let Omar sail deeper into the waters of Dai Viet.
We struck first, launching a sudden assault, yet I could never have imagined the terrifying power that awaited us. Their warships were vast and mighty, like dragons torn from legend. We were stunned by their sheer force. Each charge of theirs split our vessels in two. We had one of the strongest navies in the region, but they were stronger still. And in that instant between life and death, I saw it. Their massive ships moved with unnatural speed, too fast to be burdened with supplies. That meant the real grain fleet must be trailing behind. So I feigned retreat, vanishing among the islands, lying in wait for the slow, heavy supply ships. Omar raged, chasing the ghost of my fleet, never once suspecting I had never left at all. I could not throw away lives recklessly. The true hero is not the one who dies gloriously in the wrong moment, but the one who endures for the greater cause. A skilled fighter does not lose. A wise fighter survives even in defeat. The moment of my humiliation, of apparent failure, was the moment the enemy felt most secure. Their satisfaction, their arrogance, would become the weight that dragged them to the grave.
When news came that Tran Khandu had failed to halt Omar, the first phase of Tran Hung Dao plan collapsed. Summoned back at once to face punishment for his failure, yet Khandu begged for time, a few weeks only, so that he might redeem himself. It was a bold request, and one that carried the weight of death should he falter again. But fate often favors those who seize it. If Tran Khandu faltered on the seas against Omar, then on land in the northwest, Tran Nhat Duat faced the army of Arug marching down from Yunnan. This force was chosen with care, for the Yuan believed Yunnan troops would counter the mountains and climate of Dai Viet, since their homeland shared the same harsh terrain. They wore armor of woven rattan, cheap, durable, and light, giving them speed in the jungles. But from the borderlands, the mountain tribes had been persuaded by Tran Nhat Duat to stand with Dai Viet. They ambushed, harassed, and slowed the invaders at every step. Legend spoke of warriors carrying mountains on their shoulders. Perhaps only a metaphor, but one that reflected the crushing ambushes they unleashed. At Tuyen Quang, countless skirmishes erupted, each designed to wear down Arug's advance. Though these tribes had once fought against the Tran, now they became allies, striking together in defense of the realm. Tran Nhat Duat knew his task: delay the enemy at all costs and prevent the three Mongol armies from joining into one. Arug bore the weight of expectation, determined to secure victory with his Yunnan troops. You have archers? So do we. You strike from the trees? We strike back the same in these mountains where Mongol cavalry held no power. It was infantry against infantry. Dali's soldiers against the smaller, leaner forces of Dai Viet. The struggle became a brutal give and take. An endless chain of ambushes and lightning raids in the forest. Generals Lasash and Han fought for the last man, and like Tran Trong before them, they chose death over surrender. For 3 long months, 18 battles, each one a saga in itself, Tran Nhat Duat held Arug at bay. At last, though, Arug broke through, forcing his way past the defenses toward Thang Long.
Who would have thought that fire and steel would once again descend upon Thang Long for the 3rd time? The fall of Van Don had shattered our plan A. And with Omar's mighty fleet now pressing us, we found ourselves encircled on all sides, like fish trapped in a net. We could not afford to lose the initiative. The rules of the game had changed, and we would need short blades to strike against long ones. Our next move would be played at Thang Long itself. The capital, freshly rebuilt over 3 years, was to become a battlefield once more. We sent a fleet to block the enemy's advance toward the city. The goal was not victory, but time. Time to evacuate our court and our people. Though our fleet took heavy losses and was forced to withdraw, the delay was enough. We prepared Thang Long for defence and kept the flames of resolve burning in the hearts of our soldiers. The enemy struck the city with fury, as we expected. And as planned, we fell back to the south, leaving ambushes behind on the roads of pursuit. Each step the Mongols took led them further, their ranks thinned by relentless harassment. In the end, we reached Thien Truong in safety, the homeland of our dynasty. From here, together with the 2 emperors, I turned to Plan B. The war shifted, the board changed. Variables rose, one after another, but the spirit of Dai Viet endured, and with it, victory would still be ours.
At this moment in Van Don, Tran Khandu was ready to redeem his name. He hid his fleet behind the islands, waiting for the heavy supply ships of Zhang Wenhu to pass, and prepared the ambush.
A true strategist wins without fighting. Loose the fire arrows. Turn the sky into a storm of flame. I have waited for this moment, for the fleet to sail into this narrow sea, treacherous with reefs, where the tides rise and fall like traps of heaven. Surround them on all sides. Let there be no escape. Today, they will sink to the bottom of Van Don. From every direction, the fleet I raised with my own hands surges forth, casting the great net upon this shoal of prey. The Sea of Quang Ninh lies in the palm of my hand. Zhang Wenhu flees, bitter with rage. Let him go. He is but a small fish. Why does a true strategist win without fighting? Because one timely victory can change the fate of an entire nation.
Omar, failing once again to capture the two kings, repeating the humiliation of 3 years before, burned with fury. As he marched past the ancestral tombs of the Tran dynasty, a dark thought ignited in his mind.
In this campaign, I believe the Mongols prepared a nearly flawless plan. They advanced in winter with 3 separate armies. The Yunnan force was tailored for Dai Viet's harsh mountain terrain, expected to break through the northwest. Learning from past failures in supply, this time they used Dai Viet's river network for logistics. This was a 2-in-1 strategy. First, concentrating supplies into one route made protection easier. They reshaped the rules of the game, neutralizing Dai Viet's scorched earth tactic from the earlier wars. Run and harass all you want, we can still sit firm, they must have thought. In reality, water transport is always faster, more stable and safer than land. Second, they turned Dai Viet's naval strength into a weakness. The famous Mongol warboats of Dai Viet, so mobile in other wars, now faced the sheer might of a rebuilt Mongol fleet. Remember, after 2 crushing defeats by Japan's Divine Wind, the Yuan Navy was rebuilt, with expertise from Goryeo and the Southern Song, 2 of the best naval powers of the age. The Mongol fleet of this era was Asia's strongest. This was a tight and almost perfect plan, forcing Dai Viet to face them head-on. As long as river supply lines held, the Mongols could stand firm inside Dai Viet territory. Now let's turn to Dai Viet. At this time, their power was nowhere near the Mongols. Compared to Champa or other Southeast Asian kingdoms, they were strong. But against the Mongols, even all of Southeast Asia united might not be enough. From the first 2 invasions, Tran Hung Dao learned an important lesson. Drafting masses of peasants created too many risks and drained future labor. In the Third War, he chose to use only elite troops with limited numbers. There are 2 advantages to this. The first is mobility. He can quickly deploy troops to attack or withdraw, without having to wait for troops to gather, and without fear of being caught by the enemy. The second is that the implementation of his strategy became more coherent and less variable. After the invasion of 1258, the Tran kings saw clearly that more wars with the Mongols were inevitable. They accepted nominal surrender, but never foreign domination. Since war was unavoidable, they built a golden generation of warriors trained from childhood. If Tran Tak built a political and cultural education system, then Tran Hung Dao devoted his heart to the military academy named Jiang Vo, creating a generation of young generals who were educated in the world's military elite combined with the context of Vietnam. By this era, Dai Viet had a generation of warriors trained from boyhood with professionalism comparable to the Spartan agoge more than 1,000 years earlier. Every soldier carried discipline and combat skills above the regional average. This strength did not come from chance or sudden patriotism, but from foresight from decades ago. It could be said that they were ready to fight the giant from the north. Tran Khandu is a very fascinating figure. You know, the Asians have the concept of yin and yang. In yang, there is yin, and in yin, there is yang. Well, Tran Khandu himself carried that mix of good and evil. Some sources say he used his power to enrich himself, running shady business from the non la, a symbol of Vietnamese culture, and collecting money from the poor. His crimes, big and small, are many. From a love affair with another person's fiancée to treating people as objects of exploitation. He works well with a person but not necessarily with another, although in the overall picture, he is a chivalrous general ready to sacrifice himself for the nation. He possesses a natural talent in literature and the military. In literature, he was the hand that helped Tran Hung Dao put together the masterpiece of military writings. In the art of war, he could win battles with fewer men, turn peasants into soldiers to achieve unexpected victory, and most impressively, in the darkest moments of near defeat, he could spot the golden chance for victory. That kind of flexible brilliance puts him in the same league as Alexander the Great at Gaugamela. Tran Khandu is a hero who feels very real, not just a one-dimensional icon painted by propaganda. If we compare him with figures in American pop culture, he has a bit of Loki in him, the adopted son with a mischievous edge, and a bit of Tony Stark with his arrogance and genius. But whether it's Tran Khandu, Loki, or Tony Stark, all of them share a loyalty to their family and a drive to secure the greater good. Tran Hung Dao did not only appear as a commander, he was the very spirit of the whole war. His image is tied to the great unity of the nation, when he was willing to put aside personal gain for the greater cause. The line, "The king and his officials in one mind, brothers in harmony, and the whole country contributes its efforts," was the key to defeating the Mongol horsemen. He was a military genius with bold strategies. The scorched earth strategy, exchanging the entire capital to trap the enemy, was the obvious proof of his intelligent risk-taking. Behind the saintly general was also a very human heart. During 8 years in the Forbidden Palace, he and Princess Tianthan grew close. When she was arranged to marry another, Tran Quoc Tuan made a fearless choice. He abducted her on the very night of the wedding ceremony. It was reckless, yet it showed his courage and resolve. What is remarkable is that even the Mongols called Tran Hung Dao a divine general. His strategy at the Bach Dang River became a model case study in how the weak can overcome the strong, how stillness can defeat chaos. His enemies honored him not by words, but by quietly turning his victories into lessons for their own generals for generations after. For the Vietnamese, he is worshipped as a saint, not just for his brilliance in war, but for his virtue, always placing the nation above self-interest. In Western culture, you could call him the Hannibal of the East, a military genius who knew how to make the strongest empire of his time tremble, by wearing them down and then striking the decisive blow. One thing many people mistakenly think about the Mongols is that they are brutal and simple-minded, using pure force to sweep away their opponents. On the contrary, the Mongol Empire was built on pragmatism, sophistication in management, as well as top-notch military strategic thinking. They often won with a much smaller army than their opponents. If we think of an empire as a startup, then when the Mongol startup began, they had almost nothing, less capital, and only 1/10 the manpower of their rivals. Yet they won by investing in the right places and being extremely creative. As nomads, the Mongols had an open mind, free from rigid patterns of settled farming societies in the south. They were ready to break old rules and win with new ideas. They smashed Xiangyang's walls with Huihui trebuchets from the Islamic world. They blinded the Japanese samurai with Tetsuho bombs learned from the Southern Song. They crushed the princes of Rus and Kiev through psychological warfare. They terrified Europe by combining different types of troops into one unified force, much like Hannibal Barca did at Cannae. They expanded their empire by building a cutting-edge logistics and postal system known as the Yam, and they held stability at home by encouraging equality across ethnicity, religion, and background, while promoting meritocracy. That is why many top Mongol generals were actually from other nations, yet they were respected and empowered. The Mongols were not ignorant savages. They were a product of advanced intelligence. That's why they ruled the world for 162 years.